What do I do? Oh, there it is. Hello. So we were walking the Wild Pacific Trail and we came across shore pines. And they're kind of a cool tree because they're kind of a cool shape. So I ended up taking that shape or that idea of shore pines, and I've been painting actually a series of that shape. And so that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to kind of show you a little bit about my, my process in taking that shape and making it into a painting. We'll see how it goes. Okay? And so what I did, I translated it into a sketch. I think I can tell you that quickly on process side. That is the photo. That is the sketch. So I've taken a bunch of stuff out of it. There's not a whole lot left in there. I'm going to just kind of try and keep it pretty simple because I only got 40 minutes. Okay. So I thought about this before I started, and so I'm kind of thinking in my head, what I want to do is I want to paint positive shapes in first, paint the negative shapes in after the positive shapes, and then finish with a back and forth positive negative kind of process. Using primarily liquid acrylics. If I need some opacity, I'll tint it with titanium. I'll take some heavy body titanium white and create some tints, and we'll fire some tints into it. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, started with a canvas that was white, ended up putting a mid-tone, a warm color on here. This is primarily what I use when I'm starting. I like to start mid-tone, then work back to light, and then shade up to dark. So that's kind of that's my kind of starting point. With this color, I find when you get these little specks of this color coming through, it adds a bit of brightness, warmth, and stuff just to the painting in general. So that's kind of where I start. Okay, so let's get started. I think what I'm going to do, I'm thinking in terms of what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a couple of shapes. I'm kind of interested in that shore pine shape being in here, as we saw with the sketch. There'll be some land here. I'm thinking ahead. What I'm thinking here is I kind of like the complements of blue, mauve, orange kind of thing happening here. Open space, kind of thinking eventually I wouldn't mind it feeling a bit windy. Get some feeling into the painting as opposed to just painting it. I want you to feel the painting than to see the painting as a painting. Okay? So let's start with that. I think what I'll do, kind of got some orange happening, and then we got a little bit of that mid-tone popping through there a bit. Okay, so let's just start. So I'm going to be mixing the paints as I go. Normally what we do is when we start out, I have a lot of paint spread out on a bigger palette, but tonight I'm just going to make the colors as I go because I sort of have an idea what I want to do. We'll see how we make out if I'm successful or not. So I think we're going to have a shore pine that's going to look through there. Actually, that should it work? Yeah, that's not bad. Now, so I'm just working on some positive shapes here, kind of where I want the color, and then I'm going to build some darks and stuff over the top of these babies as we go along.
Can you shout out your colors as you do it?
I can. That's a bit of anth and some manganese blue hue.
Do you use mostly transparents or mixture of pinks and transparents?
Transparent, I don't know transparent.
Transparent paint, like it's more transparent, like you know.
Oh, I see. Basically I just use acrylic, and if I want to make it a little less, you're thinking in terms of the translucency, the acrylic liquids aren't very charged. Like you get the solids, they're really saturated with pigments. You get the liquids, they're not very charged. So I find actually that can be a problem when you're doing some of this kind of stuff and you want some opacity, and that's when I end up tinting with titanium white.
Right.
Yeah, get some of that heavy body in there to give it some opacity. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Okie dokie. Okay. I think what we'll do, take a little bit of Quin Crimson.
Sorry, didn't catch
Quinacridone Crimson. And I'll take that, and then what I'll do is I'll shade that with anthraquinone blue. And that'll make my dark. And I use that as a dark a lot. And then we kind of just and so we'll put some of that in there. And I'll get a couple of lines going there. Now, I'm just going to get this. So, because I want to start creating some negative painting stuff happening, I'm going to put a few of my calligraphy branches and stuff in early so they can start drying, so that we can start painting negatively pretty soon, right? So they'll be mostly basically
Are you working with a rigger?
I am working with a rigger, yeah. Little guy, actually. Not the one I usually use, but this one I got. Yeah. So I'll just put a couple of lines in here. Okay. Now, I think while that's drying, I'll put a couple of other shapes. I'll take a bit of primary magenta and again, probably a bit of the crimson, quinacridone crimson, a bit of primary magenta. And I'm just going to actually add a little bit of red for the heck of it. Maybe mix a little bit in there. Just provide a little bit of variety. And I might actually put a little bit of that in. And kind of keep it all in balance. And kind of like some little darks down through here. Light tends to be under the branches. And some blue. Then, doesn't look like anything at the moment, I don't think. Maybe it does. Let's take some of that. Now I used a bit of titanium white to shade, and then I'm going to throw a little bit of that in here for the tree. You can see right now all I'm doing is I'm laying in color. It's kind of very abstract. It's not really saying much of anything. And just kind of let that go there. And let's take a little bit of that. Some darks in here. Yeah, not bad. Okay, still kind of wet, but that's all right. Let's keep playing. Don't stop now. I took a little bit of burnt sienna because that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to make some rocks out in the water. And they tend to be a little bit darker at the bottom. Yeah, that's not bad. And then let's see what else we can do. Okay, so let's, what the heck, why don't we start cutting? Sure, we don't have much time, so let's do it.
Are you looking at your photo at all, Rick? No?
I have, I guess I've got it in my head, to be honest. Yeah, I just did. No, I haven't. But that's an interesting question. When I actually get started, my brain kind of gets kind of intuitive, sort of, a little bit. You kind of know what you want to do, but you kind of end up feeling it more than you actually need to. The sketch gets me started, and then intuition kind of takes in after a while. You know, just kind of, does that look right? You know, kind of the question that goes through my head. So.
Your photo is just kind of gives you just a bit of an idea of what you want to do.
Yeah, so it was way back here. Let's see. Oh, there's the camera. So this is where I was. I was way back here, not much color, lots of stuff in the painting, right? Like lots of things going on, and quite dark, and yeah. So what I want to do is I want to take all of that, the shape, and then translate it into kind of a color study with kind of the feeling of the West Coast without painting the West Coast. So here comes the fun part. So what I'll do now is, so mostly what I end up doing, probably the same as you guys, you have your favorite brushes. I just use brights or flats and a rigger brush. And that's about it. Yeah. And generally speak, you know, like I like to just use as big a brush as I can to say as much as I can. And then we'll use smaller brushes later. So I'm just getting the worst of it in right now, and then we'll start working on some detail. Just want to get the big spaces covered. Let's see if we can go a little bit smaller. You can see we're trying to get down to some smaller stuff here. Let's see what I got here. I got that guy. And we'll slowly get down to the smaller stuff. Okay. Again, just sticking with liquids at the moment. When these start to dry back, the translucency will start to pull some of the background color through, and then the next pass I might have to go through. I might have to add some titanium white heavy body for some opacity in some of the areas, particularly in the area where I want some light. So, let's see what I got here. So I'm going to use a little bit, just a touch of cad yellow medium.
Didn't hear that one.
Sorry, I'm just going to add a touch of cad yellow medium to the white, and that'll just give it a little bit of lightness or brightness, and kind of not so cold. White, titanium white is, well, I'm not talking about titanium white is a bit cool, so a little bit of yellow, I use a little bit of yellow, just warms it up a little bit.
How do you keep the paint from drying out on your palette?
You know what? That's a good question. I know at the end of the session, like I paint for about an hour and a half, and as you can see with the palette, I've got glass about that big, and it just keeps growing until I finally find a little corner, and then that's about an hour and a half. And then I take a scraper, and then I have to scrape it all off because it is dry. So I keep chasing it around. As this dries, I move it over here, and it's not really something I would, if I was a trainer, tell you to do. This is a very non-training thing I do. Yeah. So. But yeah, it does dry up, and so you have to. And a $2 plastic scraper on glass. Don't buy metal. Buy a $2 at Cloverdale or whenever those guys. $2. It's great.
So you don't spritz it or do little spritz to keep it more moist?
No, reason for that is that my understanding is that every time you add water to acrylic, you start to break down its integrity. A little bit, obviously, okay. You know, a little bit for glazing, but although glazing liquid makes more sense than water. But every time you add water, you're breaking down, one, it's going to become more transparent because it's going to become more diluted. But also, apparently, the integrity of the complex is compromised. So I actually don't use water. So what I'm doing, a little bit of the titanium white now. I might, when I put in some other color, add a little bit of color that's on the palette just for variety. But basically what I'm trying to do is get a little bit of wave action here. Oh, come on, away. What are we doing? And we'll try and find a little, provide a little bit of definition to some of these shapes. Let's do a little bit of up here. Is just kind of create a bit of a horizon line. So what I'm thinking right now is I put some darks back into here, and I'll probably cut these out a bit more. Doesn't look quite right yet for me. So what I'm thinking I might do is I've got some of these blue things happening, and I got this interface here. I might add just a bit of mauve just as a mid-tone, and just as providing a little bit of variety to the blueness. Not sure if that's a good idea, but let's see. So I find if I just do that, and then as long as I keep providing some movement on it, keep it in balance, it seems to work not bad. I might just do a little bit more of a push-pull here. So I kind of would maybe push this back a little bit here, and then pull this up a little bit in this area, because this is kind of a cool, kind of an interesting area. I want to actually go in there. This area here, when you get those kind of branches when you see them in shore pines, they have let's see, lots of branches. And that's kind of an interesting part of the tree. So I'm not seeing much of that in this painting at this point. So I think what I will do is I might push this back a little bit. I'll see what that's like. Push this back a little bit, just to give a bit more of a kind of energy sky, kind of a little bit more stormy feeling. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make this a little bit more interesting in here with positive movement with the branches, and then I don't know if I'll have time tonight, but it like come back in with some light to make this area pop. Okay, so I'm just going to put come back in here with some of these kind of things that are happening. Am I blocking the way? I'm trying to be kind of in a calligraphy way, trying to make some light line with some thicker lines, you know, like that's kind of a... And the other thing is by doing that kind of motion, I'm trying to get some feeling that there's something happening there, right? Same with these guys up here. If the wind's blowing, there tends to be like, there could be stuff flying off here, right? Who knows? Once it dries, I'll probably cut some of them out. But it's kind of fun to just put some freckles in there. You know what, I think we'll just let it dry and then we'll call it a day and then we'll do something down here eventually. Okay, I think I'm just going to let it dry.